Vice presidential candidate George Bush is in the studio with me, and I'll be talking with him next.
Midway Village, Rockford's recreation of a 19th century world. Now you can own a reproduction of this beautiful community as painted by nationally acclaimed artist Tom Heflin. A gift from your nearby United Bank. Just deposit $500 in a new or existing savings account for your choice of 2 new works from the Heflin collection to cherish for years to come.
United, United, doing more for you.
Keep the home fires burning longer this year with this combination of wood-cutting tools from True Value hardware stores. First, the McCulloch 14-inch gas chainsaw for just $169.99 cuts wood fast, is easy to handle, and in case of kickback, this exclusive chain brake handguard stops the saw automatically. And to get cut wood ready for the fireplace, this master mechanic splitting maul splits logs with the action of a wedge and the force of a sledgehammer. And it's just $12.95 at participating True Value hardware stores and home centers.
Rock River Ford, Jeffries Motors, Edson Motors, Dodge City, Blackhawk Pontiac, Lou Backrow Chevrolet, Auto Classics, and Anderson Datsun have moved hundreds of cars and trucks, millions of dollars worth, to the Rockford Speedway to bring you the biggest sale ever in northern Illinois and southern Wisconsin. It's going on right now and will be open every night during this sale. Appraisers and finance consultants will be on duty to give you the highest possible allowance for your trade-in and assist with immediate credit acceptance. It all ends Sunday, so hurry, don't miss it at Rockford Speedway.
Live from Television 23, where news comes first, this is Action News.
Good evening. George Bush, the Republican candidate for vice president, is making a brief campaign stop in Rockford tonight and tomorrow. Mr. Bush landed a short time ago at Greater Rockford Airport and boarded a motorcade directly for the TV 23 studios. He has no public appearances scheduled for this evening, but will appear at a breakfast tomorrow at the Ramada Inn before leaving Rockford for Milwaukee. Mr. Bush is in our studios right now, and Ambassador Bush, thank you for stopping. The first question I'd like to ask you, sir, is many of the campaign battles so far have been centered on the issue of the economy. The Carter campaign is charged that with the Governor Reagan's tax-cutting proposals, that it would just about gut the federal programs and also add another $140 billion to the federal budget. How do you answer those charges?
Normally I'd be concerned because Jimmy Carter's an expert on deficits. This was the year where he was going to balance the budget, and we're $65 billion in deficit. You see, what I think has happened is that Carter has failed. Unemployment, inflation, interest rates, and so he's trying to attack our economic program, and I've got a graph in it I carry around to show how it comes together, is based on holding down the growth of federal spending, not cutting programs all the way, but holding the growth of spending, stimulating jobs and production by a tax cut. And our belief is, backed by economic models, that if we do this, that we can, again, get this country back to work. Look at unemployment here. Carter, I think, is desperate as he makes that approach. He's failed the working man in this country. You got 16% unemployment in this area. What was it when Gerald Ford was in there with sound economics? No, I think we're on the right track on the economy.
Also, the League of Women Voters is reassessing John Anderson's poll ratings right now. They are thinking about having a second debate. Would the governor accept a debate with Carter if Anderson was not included?
I don't know, but he took a principled position that Anderson should be included, and I think he still feels that way. Whether there's any circumstances under which he'd change and go one-on-one with Carter, I don't know. But, you know, Jimmy Carter, really the record on debates. He said he'd debate Kennedy, then wouldn't. Said he'd debate with Reagan and Anderson, then wouldn't. So I think the call is clearly Governor Reagan's. I don't think the country is too impressed by Jimmy Carter's kind of impassioned plea for the debate today because his record is bad. He just hasn't done what he said he'd do.
So at this time the governor has not said yes
no,
or no?
It isn't, and I think he's thinking about it, but I don't think he feels under any great pressure one way or another on it.
As a former ambassador and head of the CIA, the hostage issue has to prompt some certain response from you. At the time you were still a presidential candidate, you said you would give your full backing to President Carter on the actions he would take. Have you changed your position? Do you think
he hasn't taken any action, so I'm not in any trouble. But I did support him when we made that raid, everybody, using hindsight, wishes it had been successful and that lives hadn't been lost. But I think it's going to take, to deter those events in the future and maybe get them released, I really think maybe it's going to take a change in administration, but I hope not. I hope those hostages come out of there and come out soon. Transcends politics.
With the current situation now with the conflict between Iran and Iraq, would you favor any U.S. intervention or aid to release the hostages?
Well, yeah, on some terms, but depends what the terms are.
Supplies.
If you go for trials or, well, if there's a legitimate deal and people keep their word, that's possible, although that would involve us clearly against many countries with whom we have good relations now and with whom we should continue to have good relations. I think it has to be looked at in the context of a lot of diplomacy, so those countries, those moderate Arab countries, would know what our intentions were.
One final quick question. Do you expect any last-minute surprises from
President Clinton? Yeah, we keep thinking there will be, and I can't tell you what it is, but the American people are fair. If there's some crisis out there, they're not going to fall for it if there's no real rationale to it.
Any new fire from the Republicans?
I don't think we got any surprises. We're just trying to talk hope instead of despair, and I think it's getting through. That's why I think we're going to win this election.
All right. Thank you for stopping, Ambassador Bush.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. In other news tonight, some religious groups like the Moral Majority are trying to play a major part in the election, and that's caused a heated debate on whether this involvement violates separation of church and state.
Reverend Jerry Falwell formed the ultra-conservative Moral Majority less than 2 years ago with the intent of getting out the Christian vote. Their aim is to clean out what they call immorality in America by putting conservative politicians in office. While the Moral Majority has already ousted several politicians, others are outraged at their criteria. A member of the president's cabinet compares them to the Ayatollah Khomeini's regime. The leader of the Black Congressional Caucus likens them to the Ku Klux Klan. Even presidential candidate John B. Anderson has denounced the group. Why all the criticism for an organization that has only recently come into the public eye?
Number one, they fear the power they see potentially. Number two, they are so far from those principles, they have only one thing to do, and that's oppose them. And that shows the danger we are in when these kinds of people have such power positions in our government. You can tell which way we are going to be forced in just a few months if it's allowed to happen.
Can you see where some people may be concerned that this would be an unholy mixture of church and state? Can you see where that would...
I can see where their concerns are, and mainly because we've been so docile for the last several years. We just gave no problem to anyone because we stayed out.
Doing the same thing any other lobby group is doing, why the fear of their mobilization? Well, some critics say it's because their wave of righteous indignation is the kind of fanaticism that leads to a totalitarian government. But Moral Majority followers think it's a blessing.
I think it's absolutely great. I think every church in America should get behind it.
I do approve of it, yes.
The same thing any other lobby group is doing, why the fear of their mobilization? Well, some critics say it's because their wave of righteous indignation is the kind of fanaticism that leads to a totalitarian government. But Moral Majority followers think it's a blessing.
I think it's absolutely great. I think every church in America should get behind it.
I do approve of it, yes. We think it's a good thing they're doing.
The government should be controlled by the Lord and by men of the Lord, and it was in the beginning. No.
Because Moral Majority is well organized and says it has registered at least 100,000 voters in Illinois alone, they can be an influential force in the election. How do politicians view this new constituency?
I feel that they're entitled to their thoughts. I feel they're entitled to their ideas. I think their objectives are basically good, but to judge and to evaluate me based upon their ideas of morals, I'll answer to that, not them.
That's one view. We'll have others in our next segment. Snow Savage, 23 Action News.
In local politics, a state's attorney candidate blasts that office's arrest record. Next on Action News. The Democratic candidate for state's attorney today charged that mismanagement in that office is responsible for what he calls a low rate of felony convictions. But the incumbent says the numbers are false and misleading.
Civil cases.
Arthur Swanson says that over the past 18 months, the Winnebago County State's Attorney's Office has handled 2,329 felonies, but has only secured 616 convictions. He claims that 1,247 felonies filed led to no convictions at all. His method of bookkeeping, however, is somewhat different than that which the State's Attorney's Office uses.
On those cases, would you... Whether you take the 26.4% felony rate or the combined felonies and misdemeanors of 46.4, that's still better than half the cases that he's losing or he's dismissing.
I would say the figures are misleading and false, and as a matter of fact, with regard to the serious felony cases prosecuted in our office, I'm talking about repeaters and violent offenders, we have better than a 91% conviction rate if you count persons prosecuted versus the result of those cases.
Doyle claims that that's the accurate record and says it stands up to the best in the state. But Swanson feels that the current state of affairs isn't good enough and wants a chance to try his hand at running what he terms the largest law office in the county. Rick Price, 23 Action News.
Boone County Circuit Judge David Babb is the only judge in the State Bar Association didn't recommend retaining. The Bar Association was polled on 34 state judges. Babb said today 70% is needed for the recommendation. He got more than 61%. He also said that he is the only judge to campaign for retention. Billy Wayne Yarborough will not get a new trial on charges he committed armed robbery. Judge Philip Reinhardt denied Yarborough's motion for a new trial after exhaustive hearings, which concluded about 4:30 this afternoon. Yarborough's lawyers had argued that he should be given a second chance because his brother Willie Joe had agreed to testify that he had committed the robbery at Casey's Disco in South Beloit. Reinhardt gave 3 reasons for denying the new trial. First, because he did not believe Willie Joe's testimony, since Willie Joe was about to be tried on different charges in Wisconsin. Second, that no new physical evidence had been presented. And third, that all the evidence should have been presented at the original trial. In a precedent-setting case today, 25-year-old Terry Bowler of Rockford was found guilty of reckless homicide in the death of a baby girl after an auto accident. The crash involved the girl's mother, who went into labor soon afterward. The baby died moments after birth. Judge Philip Reinhardt ruled the baby was alive even though it had no brain waves, just a heartbeat. Bowler could go to jail for 3 years. State police are looking for a former Cook County jail guard who set fire to his sleeping family this morning in Chicago. 43-year-old Karis Buggs apparently became angered when his wife asked for a divorce. Loretta Buggs was transferred to St. Anthony's burn unit. Her 10-month-old son and 18-year-old daughter are hospitalized in Chicago. Washington has finally backed down from a position that it took earlier this year and released some funds that could get Highway 51 built a little sooner. The $13.3 million grant will be shared between 51 and the east-west tollway around Quincy. How much will go to each project is at the discretion of the governor and the Secretary of Transportation. The last phase of renovation for another major Rockford artery began today as the Greater Rockford Sign Association started to remove overhanging signs from the new Broadway Center area. The sign removal is the finishing touch on the project, which began planning back in 1971. The State Labor Department is planning to borrow $450 million to bail out the dwindling Unemployment Compensation Fund, and that is $50 million more than the department's highest estimate of just 3 months ago. And in weather, what can we expect now? We had a little clouds today. How about some sunshine?
No sunshine, more rain. Keep the umbrellas handy. Weather's next. Dense cloud coverage and a northeasterly wind flow today kept us a little bit cooler than we had hoped for. But nevertheless, I had a very nice warm afternoon visiting with some senior citizens friendship group over at the Lutheran Church of the Good Shepherd. Thanks for the invitation. Our weather video this afternoon, well, it was a beautiful sight. We made the best of the gloomy skies, a shot down at the Old Rock River, lots of trees losing their leaves. Currently outside in Rockford, we're a little on the cool side, 53 degrees, that's 11 Celsius. Freeport's at 50 according to Harry Wurzel, 10 Celsius. The barometer is 30.05 inches and holding steady now. Our humidity, a high 72%, with the winds from the east-northeast at 12 miles per hour. Our high today, only 54 at 3 o'clock this afternoon, and that's well below the norm of 65 for this time of year. Our low was 49 at 5 o'clock this morning. Normally, we're at 42. Back in 1947, however, we had a record of 89 on this date, and 10 years prior to that, in 1937, we had a chilly 21 degrees. Our sun will set at 6:15 tonight and will rise at 7:10 tomorrow morning. Well, it's that time of year now when my friend in Belvedere, meteorologist and weather watcher Steve Steinke of the Daily Republican newspaper, sends in his winter outlook for our area, and you might have a few surprises. This is what Steve thinks in order of certainty, the first one being most certain. Number 1, some of the most intense winter storms of the past 20 years. 2, sharp rises and falls in temperatures, but overall temperatures should be near normal. 3, 20 days with lows at or below zero. Numerous 1 to 3 inch snowfalls, the first snow of 10 inches or more within 36 hours of November 6th, and this is earlier than usual. First 4-inch snowfall he figures for mid-December, a little whiter Christmas this year. Total snow for the season about 44 inches, and that's not bad. The first 60-degree day of 1981 figures will be on March 14th. It's going to be interesting just to see how close he's calling it on this. As you can see, a thick blanket of clouds over the western half of the country, and those clouds are dumping the real thing, white stuff, and it is snowing like crazy. A big major winter storm, the big first one of the season. 12 inches of snow in portions of Utah now, 4 inches in Montana, 5 inches in portions of Pocatello, Idaho, 3 inches all the way down in Flagstaff, Arizona. This is moving in our direction. Right now we have a stationary front that will become warm and push its way up. We're looking for rain over the next couple of days as the low pressure systems move along that front, but that's not to say a little later on in the week we couldn't possibly see some snow. But right now, carry umbrellas. Pam Berkey, weather watcher in Roscoe, reports 49 degrees. Our forecast for tonight then, it's another gloomy one. 70% chance of thunderstorm activity and a low of 48. For tomorrow, cloudy, a little warmer, thunderstorms, 68 dropping to 50 degrees. Friday, again, a chance of thunderstorms, a little warmer though, a high of 72. Winds from the east and the southeast then.
Hope he's a little low on some of those predictions, though. Hope we're a little warmer on some of those. Thank you, Sue. The Royals will be looking to rebound in Game 2 of the World Series tonight. See Sizer as highlights of last night's game next.